Hey gang, Dave here, doing a review of motion heat liners, heated liners. Little, I guess, disclosure up front, I did not, this is not sent to me with any kind of promotion. I paid for these myself, paid full price. I'm just giving my honest review. I usually do that when I really like something or I don't like something and I want to share that. But you know, just to let the cat out of the bag, I like these, but I'm sort of going to walk through the reasons why. So basically, you can get these, and I'll put the link in down below from the Motion Heat website. I actually found that they seem to have the best price. But essentially, they come with 2 battery packs. These ones, the ones I got was the 12 volt, 3.2 amp hour lithium rechargeable battery packs. There's 2 of them again. You can also get a 16 volt setup as well for a little extra money. But basically, you know, what the kit comes with is obviously the pair of gloves. I'll talk a bit more about them. A charger with, you know, dual plugs so that you can plug in both batteries at the same time. I've never run the batteries down completely, but it takes about a good 3 hours or so to fully charge the batteries. So, you know, I usually just leave them on overnight and whatnot. It's really a trickle charge. I think it's a 12 volt. Not sure if you can see that, but it's a 12 volt. Just looking at the details here. I think it's about 1,000 milliamps, so 1 amp hour charging capacity. So, you know, it puts it in there pretty quickly. Essentially comes with, again, the gloves, the batteries, the charger. It also comes with this, and it's going to be hard to show you this in camera, but a stickman wearing setup. And you can look at their website for this thing, but it's a real, as I said, it's a stickman. It's a mess of wires, and the idea is that you sort of put it over your head. It goes down your shoulders. You know, obviously you wear this underneath your jacket. On one side, you know, for each arm, you would have the wires running down inside your jacket on each side. You know, the unit would again go around your neck, and on the other end, which you have is essentially 2 plugs. So the idea is in your, you know, you stash it in your jacket pocket somewhere, both batteries, and you plug both batteries in there. I did some testing. You know, essentially this is a parallel setup, meaning that you know, it still puts out 12 volts. Obviously you wouldn't want 24 because you'd probably burn yourself. So it puts out 12 volts, but essentially doubles, you know, it technically doubles, you know, to 7.4 amp hours. But the fact that you're plugging in both gloves is really no different than just plugging in, you know, 1 battery per glove. But I think the idea is it's really like a load balancing of sorts, where it just, you know, evenly draws that power from both batteries together versus separately. So I suspect there's some, you know, better technical reason behind that, but that's essentially the gist of it all. Again, charger, showed you that. So my thoughts on these gloves. I like them, so you can stop now if you don't need to hear any more, but I'll sort of go through some of the details why. It has this, you know, power switch. It's illuminated. Let me just plug it in and show you that. Let me back up for a second. You can plug in the actual wire harness either on the outside of the glove here, right, to actually, you know, use it. And that's sometimes if you're, I guess, you know, if you're running the wire outside of your jacket, I found that this is a bit troublesome because then it jams up between, you know, the wire coming out of my jacket sleeve and in here. So I switched over to using an inside wire, and there's a zipper pocket here with the inside plug that you can plug into there. And then it allows you to sort of keep it in your sleeve. This pocket also serves to allow you to insert the battery inside, right, inside there, plug it in, and then now you have your glove, you know, and battery together. The only issue I found is, you know, I use this for mountain biking, and in the winter I ride my fat bike all winter long. So, you know, that's a bit cumbersome for me to have this big bulky battery pack, you know, inside that area when I've got a lot of layers on it. It just becomes a problem for me, so I do need to wear the wiring harness. But anyway, in terms of powering the unit, you know, you've got this power switch here. You push and hold it. It comes on red, and basically it flashes for, you know, 10-20 seconds, I think, while it's warming up the glove. You can change the setting from high, medium to low. Currently red means high. Pushing it once, pushing it once where it's red and blue. I'm not sure if you can see that in the actual camera. Red and blue is medium, and then red and green is low. and then obviously back to high again. I usually leave them on high for the most part, because I'm riding in quite cold temperatures during the winter. And to turn it off, you just push and hold the button. One of the things for me, I was very picky on what I was looking for. I sort of searched high and low, and you know, all these heated gloves you see out there tend to only do one thing, is the heat on the back side and the front side, or one or the other, but they don't get the fingers, and that's the biggest problem. You know, if you're a winter cyclist and you cycle in very cold weather, you'll know, for us, the issue is oftentimes at the tips of the fingers, and sometimes even the thumb, because it gets numb with how you hold the handlebars. So you want that warmth to come all the way around the finger. So I'm happy to say that I'm quite impressed with these. They do that job well. They do heat. I can even feel it from the outside here. They do heat all around, all sides, and down to the fingertips. I wouldn't say they're perfect, you know, but it's bearable. And for my riding, I tend to do, you know, I ride all winter long, Southern Ontario area. This winter's been quite cold. You know, January 2022 is quite cold, and oftentimes riding in -10 Celsius temperatures, and sometimes with wind chill, which really makes it noticeable. These gloves are liners, so let's be clear about that, right? They are not meant to be worn by themselves. You can. I've often ridden with these by themselves with the temperatures a little closer to zero, and they can you know, do that quite well. The key is wind and moisture. If it's snowing or it's wet out, you know, these things are not waterproof, so they're going to let the wind through, and they're going to, you know, they're going to wick the moisture away from your hand, but they're also going to let it in. You know, they are liners after all. So when it's really cold, I'll tend to wear these with a pair of mittens over top that are like more like a shell. I bought a very thin pair of mittens. I don't have them here, but a very thin pair of mittens just to form a windbreaker, like a windbreak, and they work great, that combination. So, you know, I can hit down to -15 plus with that combination. So again, you know, they also have touch screens. The index and the thumb can be used on a touch screen. I don't do that much, but so I haven't really tested it a lot, but I have used it once or twice, and it does work. But I think the key is that, you know, these work really well. You know, they do their job. I tend to only ride for about an hour and 15 minutes most rides. I'll usually get 2 full rides out of these things, and by then, like, I've never really drawn it any lower than down to about 50% power. So they're, you know, I think they say on their website, they say 3 hours on high, 9 hours on low. And, you know, I think that's quite reasonable of an expectation. I've just always usually charge them up after the second ride that I do. You know, if you're out there for a long time, you either want to, you know, go down to a lower setting on the temperature, or just, you know, realize that it will use up that battery in time. I guess some of the challenges I have with these gloves is, you know, I know that they make an attempt to try to offer a lot of options here, like this, you know, inside, which I'll never use myself, but some may find that very useful. I kind of think this is quite useless. It just gets in the way. I have considered cutting it off and removing it. I just need these gloves to slip on and either go over my sleeve or under my shell jacket, which would come over and cover this up. I don't need this bulk in my way. I don't need to draw it tight, but, you know, some people may find that useful. Anyway, it's more cosmetic for me. And like I said, considering removing it. Also, this stickman wire, I found to be a pain in the ass, quite honestly. Every time you know, it's for those of you that ride in the winter know that it takes like so long just to get your entire outfit on with multiple shells and layers, and you would ever get yourself ready with all your equipment. Putting this thing on, you know, it adds another minute or two, but I just find it painful. So I already had a separate set of you know, connecting wires that I just use now myself instead of this, and I just run the wires down my sleeve for each battery in a separate pocket on the, you know, one on the left side, one on the right side, and obviously a wire on the left and right sleeve, and that works quite well for me. I think one of the only other small beefs I have, and I think this is not a big deal, but some may think it's better, but this is meant to snap fit, and it's a very tight fit. It's hard to get in, and when you're out there or getting ready to go out there, you know, sometimes I'm having a hard time now, but you really have to work at it. So, you know, and sometimes people might be inclined to pull from here, and that's not a good idea because you don't want to rip from there. So you know, the grip could be better on here to help me disconnect this. So you really have to work at that. So I tend to just leave it like that, and usually it holds together just fine anyway, whether I use this or the other ones that I provided. Anyway, so yeah, motion heat gloves. Again, they're I think they cost me about 260, 270 Canadian plus tax, so they're not cheap. But you know, if you're committed to doing this for the winter, it's a relatively small expense to keep your hands warm, because that's a big thing. You know, for those of you that do this a lot, you've probably gone through what I've gone through, where you're, you know, over the years, you're figuring out how to get the perfect, warmth that you need to do your rides and not feel inconvenience, be it your kneecaps or your toes and your feet because your shoes, or again, your gloves or your hands, right? So for me, I finally have solved, I'd say like 95% of my cold issues, mainly my hands, my knees, and my toes. And other than that, it's really just a balaclava and ski goggles that I wear for my face, and then I feel fully protected, and you don't even realize it's cold by then once you get going, as you know. So anyway, so yeah, I'm happy with these. I do recommend them. If you're looking for something, for me, it was like, I don't want some Mickey Mouse gloves that claim to be warm, that can barely heat up. And then I get out there and I'm like, okay, I can't even feel this heat. I'm still freezing. These have, these have solved that problem. I suspect if you ride in minus 30, minus 40, which honestly I've ridden for 35 years and I don't need to do that these days. But if you're out to do that, then I don't know if these would solve that problem. I mean, I think you really need a pretty sophisticated solution, and maybe that's the 16 volt, because obviously you would get more heat out of 16 volts than you do 12. The current doesn't matter as much as the voltage in this situation. And also, just another tip, don't be rough with these things, right? You're dealing with like a fiber material that are the heating elements. So it's not like a wire per se. It's more a fiber material that does have some flexibility. But you don't want to yank your gloves off, rip them off your hand. You got to take care of these things, because you don't want to separate or damage that, because it is like it's like a wire of sorts in there, right? And once you break that contact somewhere, your gloves are done, right? So, you got to kind of be really careful with how you pull these things off your hand and work them off slowly, and then, pull properly, right? Anyway, so I think that's all I have to say about these things. Again, like them, recommend them. As I said earlier, I'm not sponsored. I wasn't given these. I paid full dollar for them. I just, like to talk about things that I, feel have solved my problem and could solve other people's problems. So thanks for listening. If this was useful to you, I appreciate, like and subscribe. You'll see lots of different videos I do. Primarily my stuff is related to electronics projects and Arduino and, ESP and IoT and home automation, stuff like that. But every once in a while, my other passion is mountain biking and fat biking in the winter. So I'll talk a bit about bikes and parts sometimes too. All right, thanks. Ciao.